Skinwalker Ranch really derived its name from a curse. The Skinwalker curse has its roots in a feud between the Ute tribe and the Navajo tribe. At a time when the Utes were really aligned with the United States government and had sold many of their peers into slavery. So the Navajo cursed this property. A skinwalker is essentially a witch that has chosen to put on the skin, essentially, or the form of what can only be described as a giant wolf. A skinwalker is something that exhibits superhuman agility and strength. Placing the skinwalker curse on this property made it a very real place to avoid.
Hey everybody, we are back. How is everybody doing out there? How are you, Jeremy?
Yeah, not bad. Been busy, a bit tiring with work, but all in all, not too bad at all.
It's just the two of us tonight. Fernando is away doing something. I don't know what, but we thought we would, in his honor, do something on an American site, which everybody in just about all of these different things that we love will know about, and that is Skinwalker Ranch. So you know a little bit, don't you? But you're gonna
enough to get me by to ask you questions.
Yeah, that would be about right. So we were originally going to have Brandon Fugel on. He did agree to come on the show, and he is obviously the owner of Skinwalker Ranch. But being the busy man that he is, unfortunately, it sort of fell through. So we are, instead of doing an interview with him and learning all the ins and outs of what's going on there, we are just going to go with what everybody knows. And I thought we'll start with if you want to tell me what you know about it, and then we can go from there.
Well, from what I've had a look at for just a quick research, is the Skinwalker is from the Navajo culture. They call it a harmful witch that can shapeshift into any animal with four legs. To the use of four legs, I suppose, at one stage. That's a good one.
So
had a mental blank completely.
Jeez. Oh, you say you're
so the property has been owned by several people.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen. The local reporter in June '96 said they had seen mysterious crop circles. They had Shermans.
The Shermans was the family, yeah.
Sorry, the Shermans at the time had said that there was also UFOs and systematic and repeated mutilations on that property.
Mm-hmm. All right, you want me to take over from here now?
Oh yeah, look, I've already stuffed it, so let's go.
Look, ever since I've been in the paranormal, I've loved all this stuff. Now, obviously, I started a long time ago, and the Skinwalker Ranch wasn't a thing; it wasn't known of back then, but well, not in mainstream anyway. But it started in the 90s, I believe, is when it really started to hit the mainstream for its paranormal activity, UFO activity, cryptozoological type activity, you name it, it happens there. So basically, it all started with the Shermans that you were talking about. This is where it really, the first lot of stuff happened, and it was very weird. A lot of the activity, they were noticing, they were cattle farmers, and they noticed that a lot of the cattle and stuff like that were being killed off and or going missing completely. And there was this one day when the family was out, and they noticed this, what they described as a big, dark, wolf-like creature, well, a wolf, but much bigger than normal, coming up towards them, and it wasn't paying them absolutely any attention. It was not scared of humans one bit. He ended up shooting it. Well, he shot in the air to try and scare it off, and that didn't scare it off. So he ended up, I think with his pistol, he ended up actually taking a shot at it. He hit it. He actually saw a tuft of hair come off, but it didn't even flinch. It just kept walking. So he went out and he got the much bigger gun and shot it again, and it just kept going, and as if it didn't even get touched. And that's when they freaked out, and then they pretty much started shooting it because it got that close. It was almost point blank range, and they put some big caliber shots into this thing before it finally decided, yeah, that tickled, and it took off. And they went after it, and besides a couple of tufts of hair and stuff, it just disappeared. It was gone. And that's one of the first sightings anyway. And it goes on from there. You know, got the cattle mutilations and things like that. And what happened was they would put it down to the legend, the Utes, and the different legends going around of the ridge. Now, it was called Skinwalker Ridge, which is there's a mesa that runs along the side of the property, through the property, but there's a lot of weird things that happen around this mesa. Now, I'll get into some of the really cool stuff later on, but this thing sort of disappeared in that general direction. Now, they've gone up there and they've got all sorts of weird things happening, and I'm going to skip and jump a lot of it because a lot of people have heard a lot of this, but some of the weird stuff that happened again with the cows is that, or the cattle, is that they came home one day and couldn't find any of the cattle anywhere. And then it was just purely by chance they opened a shed and they found every single one of their cows had literally been crammed in like sardines. Now, to the best of my knowledge, cows can't open locks and they can't climb very well. These things were all shunted in there, then piled on top of each other, and then the door was shut and locked behind them. And these things, it took them a while, and they were almost in a catatonic state when they came out, and they wondered what the hell could cause something like that to happen. Now, at that point, things really started taking off, and they not just these weird creatures like the wolves and things like that. They actually started having paranormal activity happening in their house and in Homestead too, because there's a couple of different things around the ranch and everything. And they haven't gone much into what happened other than it got that bad. They ended up just selling and leaving. And when new owners bought the place, I could be getting this slightly out of order, but when the new owners bought the place, they found it very weird because when they went in, every single door in the house, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, every door didn't just have locks and padlocks on, or deadlocks on them, but they had padlocks and chains and everything. And I said, what the hell is going on here? Now, when this family bought the place, I can't remember the names now, so forgive me for not knowing all the facts, but one of the conditions that they bought the place was they weren't allowed to dig on the property. And I find that was very weird. So what the owner said, or the guy selling the place said, was, if you want to dig, you need to let me know where you're digging, and I'll let you know if it's safe to do it there or not, which is, again, it's a very weird thing to say, but they were going to do some digging. So they rang this guy up, and he flew interstate to check the area that they were doing, and he said, yeah, you're all right to dig there. So my question is,
what is there that we don't know about?
What is there that you don't want digging up? You know what I mean? Now, it goes on from there. So that you've got these cryptozoological creatures like the wolves and stuff, the big wolves. You've got the paranormal activity or whatever was going on in the house that scared the absolute crap out of the family. But then they started hearing strange voices, but these voices were coming from the sky, and they would reckon it was just above the ground. You could almost hear what they were saying, but not quite. And then there were things like the UFO sightings and whatever. Now, this is ultimately what the Skinwalker Ranch is super famous for, is the UFO activity there. And
UFO Valley.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And if you actually have a look at some of the satellite footage, there's some areas of that whole area, not just Skinwalker Ranch itself, but the surrounding ranches that I don't know, looks very, very suspicious. So I just lost where I was going.
All right, you look like you're saying, you look from those aerial photos of that landmass in the area. You've got big discs in the ground.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, if you can't move it, do you just cover it over?
Well, this.
That's what it looks like.
This is one of the interesting things, right? There was a UFO crash in the 50s, and they reckon that this UFO was that big that they couldn't move it, so they buried it on location. Guess where that was?
Mm-hmm.
It was in Utah. We
Well,
don't know the specifics of whereabouts it was, but
there's like 3 huge round discs within a vicinity of each other.
Yeah. Now,
That's
I've got so much stuff going through my head. I'm losing track of what I'm saying. Now, over the years, all the different TV shows have been there. You know, you've seen them all do their UFO investigations. Even like I think Paranormal State were there. Just about all of them. And I really, really, even from then, it's on my bucket list. That's one place that I do want to go. Now, I knew somebody who lived in Utah about 10, 15 years ago, and she said it's not too far from where she lives, and if we ever got over there, we'd go for a drive. But we wouldn't actually be able to get on the site itself. I mean, this was a while ago, but we still wouldn't be able to get on the site itself, but it would have been cool just to even get up to those gates and take a photo with those famous gates. Now, when this family ended up selling it, there was that much stuff going on that Bigelow Aerospace bought the place, NIDS, and they did a hell of a lot. They held on to it for a long time, and they did all kinds of experimentation to find out what was going on. Now, they have never released hardly any of their info on it, but eventually John Bigelow sold it on, and that's when Brandon Fugel bought the place. Now, he didn't think of it anything more than, obviously, childhood dreams and what have you. I don't know at what point he was approached or however the TV show started, but you've got that show that's probably 4 or 5 seasons old now, where they get Travis out there and all the guys out there do all these different experiments. And some of the stuff that they've found there, it's absolutely mind-boggling, you know, and it makes you think that they're saying it could be like there's a vortex there, or like a dimensional rift or something.
That's what I was going to ask you. Have you heard of the triangle?
Yes, the triangle is a little section. The only reason they call it a triangle is because that's basically what it is. I don't know if you've seen any photos of it, aerial photos of it, but it's just a dirt track that goes this way. There's another dirt track that sort of goes that way, and then there's another one through. It forms a triangle. Yeah. But funny enough, a lot of the paranormal activity and everything is centered, or the UFO activity is centered around that triangle area, and that's very close to the mesa as well. Now, they've dug into the mesa with drills and things like that can go so far, and then they hit something. They actually got metal shards, and what's really interesting is this mesa apparently is never supposed to have been dug up. That's what they're saying. Now, again, we don't know what happened when NIDS had the place, you know, Bigelow Aerospace, when they had it all. But when they were flushing it out, everything that was coming out from the drill, they were getting fragments of these compounds and little metal flakes and things which match the same chemical composition as the heat-resistant tiles on the bottom of the space shuttle. Mm-hmm. So it's not natural. It's all artificial, and it should not be there at that depth in, so I think it's limestone, I'm not sure, but in solid stone in the middle of the mesa.
In that triangle, they've also shot rockets up.
Yeah.
They've dropped stuff from helicopters. They've tried to fly drones through there. I think at one stage when they were doing the rockets, or they were doing other testing, was it from the drones, and they measured radiation, like just above or middle of the sky.
Yeah.
So it was like 12 or 13 feet up. I think they were getting radioactivity.
From it's funny enough you mentioned radioactivity. When Travis Taylor was there, one of the first days he was there, actually, they went to Homestead 2, which is the closest sort of, I mean, it's a wreck of a building, but that's the closest to the triangle area. And he wanted to have a look, and he found this manhole. And what happened was when they opened the manhole up, he had a little DOS meter, or whatever they call them, that detects radiation and stuff. And
A gas meter.
I can't remember what the exact name for it, but it started beeping, and then it went to an alarming level, and they put the lid back down. They got out of there, and they reckon it was high enough that it could have been almost a lethal dose to anybody. And some of the weird things that have happened to some of the people out of there as well, like one of the caretakers there, he ended up digging somewhere, and he ended up with this big lump where his actual scalp started to come away from his skull. Mm-hmm. And weird things like that, when they just can't explain that kind of thing. Now, getting back to the triangle, they when, like you said, they did the drone experiments. You know how you go and you see those drone shows where they're all programmed to go up, and they do the different patterns and things like that. Well, they had them set out just in a basic grid, and all they were doing was supposed to climb up, just stay in this grid formation so you could see all the dots. Now, this is very much like when you're a paranormal investigator and you use the laser grid system. If you see any changes in the pattern, you know it's picking something up. Yeah. So as this rectangle is going up, some of them start failing, some of them start falling out of formation. It's like they're hitting something specific at a certain height. And you just don't know. We don't know to this point what it is, but this correlates position-wise where people were hearing these voices and things coming from the sky. So they're trying all these different experiments. They've sent up rockets to see what happens at certain heights. They've gone sending the drones up, like you said. They've gone up in the helicopter and actually dropped sensors with little mini parachutes and things like that right through that area. Now, some of these things they've actually seen disappear into thin air, quite literally with their own eyes. It's dropping, it's gone. Now, things don't disappear out of the sky. You'll see them falling behind a tree or something like that, but to disappear in thin air on a clear day.
That also comes down to one of the theories I have for Skinwalker Ranch as well.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about geophysical processes causing the brain to hallucinate.
Possibly,
anything from moves in tectonic plates to seismic activity, geomagnetic fields, and other things affecting part of the human brain.
Yeah, but the difference that where you have an issue, where we have an issue with that is a hallucination is specific to a single person. It is not specific to a group of people, and it's certainly not specific to technology. So when a number of people see it disappear, you can't have I suppose there are stories of mass hallucinations, but when you pick it up on a camera and it disappears, you can't, you know what I mean? I know you can dodge footage and things like that, but there's just so much there. I mean, we always look for 3 points of validation whenever we're looking for information. When you've got all these different people, you've got a number of cameras and everything on it, and it happens in all of them. It's something specific. It's something in 3D space that's happened. Now, what's interesting is when they were up there doing some mapping in the helicopter, it was Brandon's brother. He's the pilot and everything, and they were going up there. They were up at about 5,000. I think they're about 5,000 feet, something like that, above sea level in Utah. Anyway, so they were at 10,000 feet, which is about 5,000 feet above the ground. And they started having proximity warnings coming in under the helicopter. Now, you know, when you're flying, if you get close to the ground, you get all the warnings coming. Or if you're getting very close to another object, you get a proximity alert, because obviously you've got to keep your eyes peeled. Now, when they're in a helicopter over their own property, not doing much at all except these little tests, and this thing was beeping saying it's 30 feet underneath them. It's a clear day. They can look down and they can see, and there's nothing there. What is the sensor picking up? You know, it got to the point where these sensors were going off that much that he was actually worried, and they ended up taking the helicopter down. Now, they had the guys on the ground looking up as well, and they said no, they couldn't see anything. But in a couple of shots, you see these little dark objects dart through. There was something up there with them. So what are we talking now? Now, if you actually look at some of the footage, and I'll see if I can find something. I'll include it in this video so you can see what we're talking about. You'll see the mesa light up at nighttime, but there's nothing there. What's lighting it up? There's nothing. You can't see anything. You know what I mean? And it's not being lit up from the ground. It's like something's gone straight over the top because you see the light pattern and everything move with it. Lots of UFO activity. It's just one of those places you got to go to.
But those was the headquarters and the two buildings, were they specifically or strategically put?
What do you mean?
In those positions, and it's a portal there.
Well, that is one of the big things. That's not, call it a vortex, call it a portal, whatever you want. The Native Americans in the area, the Utes and stuff, they think it's a very sacred place. And then obviously you've got all the history. Now, when I say we talk about Skinwalker Ranch, that's the famous one. Now, the activity happens on all the ranches around it as well. And this mesa continues through some of these other ranches as well. It's not specific and completely within the Skinwalker Ranch itself. So it's interesting that the history of weird stuff goes back hundreds of years in relation to Native American law and the Skinwalker and stuff like that. Now, with everything happening in our day and age, they're throwing so many scientific tests at this place that we still don't know what it is. And this is something that's really interesting. If you watch one of the episodes of the Skinwalker Ranch TV show, when they go down into drilling into the mesa, they hit a certain point where they can't go anymore. So they drill another hole, and then they hit a point where they can't go anymore, and another one. And they actually mapped all these things out, and you end up with a dome shape inside the mesa, which is what you would expect the inside of a hangar to look like. So what's there? Is it a secret underground base of either American or extraterrestrial origin? Is it a like a nexus point? Is it a portal?
It's got to be something, because you wouldn't put a thing on a sale of a house saying that you can't dig anywhere without permission. That's just weird.
Oh, this place, it has me absolutely mesmerized. And like I said, I just wish Brandon was on here because he knows everything about the place.
Well, he's owned it for how many years now?
I can't remember when he bought it now. He mentioned it, but
like 06?
Something like that, yeah. He didn't do anything with it for a long while. And now,
how do you explain the cattle mutilation with that surgical precision? Like, you can't.
Well, that comes back to any UFO type activity, because cattle mutilations are very much tied into the UFO lore. And it's not just the absolute precision, it's the time as well. Like, they would have seen a cow in a certain place, and then an hour later it's dead, it's been cored, and all the bits and pieces of weird things have been happening to it, and all that's happened inside of an hour, and then it looks like it's been what's the word for it, where they use heat to sort of fuse it back together and stuff like that. There's
Motorized.
Yeah, it's just not possible in the time that they do it. And what's interesting as well is what happened was, when they got rid of one of these bodies of one of the cattle, one, it didn't decompose, and the scavengers wouldn't go anywhere near it.
Did they? So correct me if I'm wrong. I remember watching a few episodes. Did they not actually get some Navajos that were local to that area to come along the ridge with them and explain some things?
I think they're from I can't remember. What it is, there was, I think it was the Navajo and the Utes. They were sort of not very friendly with each other.
I vaguely remember either read it or heard it saying that one of them, or one of the tribes, doesn't even want to go in that area, in a certain area. Yeah.
So no, it's really interesting. And what, if you watch the show, what's really interesting as well is the amount, because they have the sky covered with radar and all this, that, and the other. They've got all this high tech stuff, and they keep picking up helicopters, and they've actually got on footage black helicopters with no lights and no tail tags and anything flying around, keeping an eye on them. So if they're keeping an eye on them, especially if they're a military or some sort of a secret organization, they've got to have a pretty good idea that there's something there if they're spending that kind of money.
Maybe it's like a new Area 51 somewhere else.
Who knows? Who knows?
Entrance somewhere else with a passageway that goes straight there.
Yeah.
What's a better way to hide something than in plain sight? You think how many eyes are on Skinwalker Ranch, and you hide something in plain sight like that? That's smart.
Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of weird stuff about that place, and I love it. So it's on my bucket list of places to go. If we can get Brandon on at a later stage, we will do, because I'd love to get a lot of facts about it, which a lot of other people don't know about, and go from there. And he's a really nice guy to talk to, and he has a lot of the same interests. If you look at the stuff I've got over my behind me, he's got 100 times that, and where I've got the stuff that you just buy from the shops, he's got all the original stuff. You know, he buys them all at auction and stuff, and
it'd be nice.
He's got.
Well, the Skinwalker Ranch, when the people that bought it before Fugal did, they paid $200,000 for the ranch.
Oh, you won't pay that for it now.
It's a lot more than that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anyway, on that, I think we're just about out of time, so we're going to have to do a runner, and we will be back with something really cool in the
near future.
Well, next week. So,
near future. Come on, it sounded good.
It did. And you know what you haven't said for a long time? You haven't done your tagline.
And I'm not going to do it because the podcast has changed names.
Well, it's still... That was a long time ago. Actually, we're getting close.
Out of respect for the person... Actually, I didn't realize at the time, but out of respect for the person that actually has it and does book reviews and everything else and movie reviews, I'm not going to say it.
Fair enough. All right. But yours was completely... When you said it, it was completely off the cuff, and it was not any kind of rip-off or anything like that, and it was a long time ago, and I've got the original... I've got the video... And that's what I was just about to say. We're getting
it's not happening.
We're getting close to 100 episodes. And
I think when we reach 200 subscribers, then you can release a snippet. It's only
see.
40 odd people away.
Come on, everybody else has to see those pineapple shorts of yours.
Oh no, you had to say that name.
Oh, you was wearing them on your pants.
Yes.
It's even worse now, isn't it? So... All right, on that, I think it's time to go. So until next week, take it easy, guys.
Have a good one.
See ya.